The best water in the valley. The best water in the whole valley? That was ours. Straight from the well, cold enough to make your teeth ache even on the hottest summer day. Pa said it was because the aquifer ran deep, touched the bones of the mountains themselves. I didn't know about bones, but I knew the taste. Sweet, clean, nothing like the metallic tang of town water. I swung the heavy metal bucket under the pump handle, the chain clanking a familiar tune. 1, 2, 3 pulls, and the water gurgled to life, filling the bucket with a rush. I splashed some on my face, the shock making me gasp. Perfect. Billy, get a move on, son. The troughs are near dry. Pa's voice, rough but kind, carried from the barn. Coming, Pa. I hefted the bucket, the weight pulling at my arm, and trudged toward the barn. Dust devils danced across the dry fields, a constant reminder of how precious our water was. The cows mooed their impatience, their sides heaving in the heat. I filled the first trough, watching them jostle for a place, their long tongues lapping greedily. Pa was already shoveling hay into the feeders, his face lined with worry. Thanks, Billy. You're a good hand. He clapped me on the shoulder, the callous skin rough against my own. Just helping out, Pa. I knew he worried about the water. Everyone did. It was lifeblood in this valley. Without it, the land was just dust and dreams. Later, as the sun dipped behind the mountains, painting the sky in fiery hues, I sat on the porch, a glass of well water in my hand. The ranch house creaked and groaned around me, a familiar symphony of home. This place, this land, this water, it was all I'd ever known. Grandpa Baker built this place, Pa kept it going, and one day it would be mine. That was the way it was supposed to be. But lately, a knot of unease had taken root in my stomach. There was a new tension in Pa's shoulders, a frown that seemed permanently etched on his face. The HOA folks in their fancy houses down the road, with their manicured lawns and swimming pools, had started complaining about our water usage. Said we were draining the aquifer. Pa just scoffed and said they didn't know a thing about ranching. But I saw the worry in his eyes, and I knew, deep down, that something was coming. Something that threatened the best water in the valley, and everything it meant to us. A new neighbor arrives. The rumble of a large truck vibrated through the ground, shaking the windows of the bunkhouse. Billy, mid-whittle with his pocket knife, paused, listening. It wasn't one of their trucks. Peeking through the dusty window pane, he saw a moving van parked in front of the little white house down the road, the one that had been empty for ages. A new neighbor. Excited, Billy bounded outside, his boots kicking up little puffs of dust. A woman, stiff and prim, was directing the movers with sharp, clipped instructions. Her gray hair was pulled back in a severe bun, and her face was etched with lines of disapproval. This wasn't the friendly sort he was used to around here. Later that afternoon, Billy saw her again. She was standing on her meticulously manicured lawn, hands on her hips, surveying it like a general inspecting his troops. Not a blade of grass seemed out of place. Billy, remembering his manners, waved. She offered a curt nod in return, her lips pursed. Curiosity gnawed at him. He wandered closer, pretending to examine a particularly interesting patch of wildflowers near the property line. That's when he heard it. Honestly, she was saying to one of the movers, her voice laced with disdain, the dust. It's simply appalling. Ruining everything. This used to be such a pristine area, but now, well, you can see for yourself. She flicked a perfectly manicured fingernail at a speck of dirt on her pristine white porch railing. Billy's heart sank. The ranch did kick up dust. It was part of life. He knew his dad always tried to keep the water truck going to minimize it, but some was unavoidable. This new neighbor clearly wasn't going to understand. He trudged back to the bunkhouse, the image of her disapproving face clouding his usual sunny disposition. This wasn't going to be good. The water woes begin. The drone of the well pump had always been a background hum, a constant reminder of life-giving water for the ranch. But this morning, it was a personal affront, an orchestra tuning up just outside Mrs. Crabtree's window. Billy watched from the barn as she marched toward his dad, her floral dress a splash of defiant color against the dusty landscape. Mr. Baker, she called, her voice sharp enough to curdle milk. That infernal machine. It's making the most ghastly racket. I can't even enjoy my morning tea in peace. Billy's dad, normally a picture of calm patience, pinched the bridge of his nose. Mrs. Crabtree, the well, it's essential. It provides water for the livestock, the crops. Essential to torment me, you mean? She gestured dramatically towards her rose bushes, their blooms drooping in the morning sun. And look at my prize-winning roses. Wilting. I tell you, that vibration is disrupting their delicate root systems. My Crimson King is practically on its deathbed. Billy knew those roses were her pride and joy. He'd once accidentally kicked a stray pebble near them and received a lecture that lasted a solid 10 minutes. "Ma'am," his dad said, trying a different approach, "the well's been here for decades. The roses were planted long after. I can assure you, the pump is operating normally." He gestured to the dry creek bed in the distance. "Without it, this whole area would be dust. We all rely on it." Mrs. Crabtree sniffed, unmoved. "Dust would be preferable to this incessant noise and the demise of my roses. I expect you to do something about it, Mr. Baker." Immediately, she turned on her heel, leaving a wake of floral perfume and simmering discontent. Billy's dad sighed, running a hand through his hair. The water woes, it seemed, had only just begun. Unheard explanations. Billy's dad sighed, a low rumble in his chest. He reached into the glove compartment of the dusty pickup and pulled out a creased document. "Mrs. Crabtree, with all due respect, we have the proper permits for the well. Here it is, plain as day." He held it out, the afternoon sun glinting off the laminated paper. Mrs. Crabtree didn't even glance at it. Her lips remained pursed in a permanent frown. "Permits can be acquired. I wouldn't put it past you, Baker. Probably forged it on your fancy computer." She sniffed, a delicate, almost bird-like sound. "I've lived here longer than you have, and I know how things work. You think you can just waltz in here and start sucking up all the water?" Billy felt his hands clench. He wanted to tell her that the aquifer was huge, that their well barely made a dent, but he knew it wouldn't matter. She wasn't listening. He saw the way her eyes narrowed, the way she dismissed his dad with a flick of her wrist. It felt personal. "Mrs. Crabtree," his dad said, his voice still calm, but with an edge Billy hadn't heard before. "This permit is legitimate. It's been reviewed by the state. You can call the Water Resources Department yourself if you don't believe me." He tapped the permit with a calloused finger. "Look, this well is essential for our livestock, for our livelihood. We're not trying to cause any problems." "Oh, I'm sure." Mrs. Crabtree's voice dripped with sarcasm. "Essential. I'm sure those creatures are more important than my prize-winning petunias." She adjusted her oversized sunglasses, the lenses reflecting the cloudless sky. "I'll be contacting my lawyer." With that, she turned on her heel, her floral print dress swishing around her ankles, and marched back towards her perfectly manicured lawn, leaving Billy and his dad standing in the dust. 911. The sun beat down with malicious intent, baking the earth a crispy brown. Dust devils danced in the distance, swirling like miniature cyclones of misery. Even the lizards seemed to be panting as they sought shade under the scraggly mesquite bushes. Watering the stock was a constant battle against evaporation. Billy wrestled the heavy hose, directing the precious liquid into troughs for the cattle, their tongues already lolling in anticipation. He then filled the smaller buckets for the chickens, who clucked their gratitude, kicking up little clouds of dust. As he dragged the hose towards the pig pen, he noticed Mrs. Crabtree standing at the edge of her meticulously manicured lawn, her face a mask of pinched fury. She was on her phone, pacing back and forth, her voice a low, venomous hiss that carried on the still air. Billy, ever curious, pretended to adjust a sprinkler head, inching closer to eavesdrop. "I'm telling you, it's blatant theft." Mrs. Crabtree spat into the phone. "They're draining the aquifer dry with their illegal well." "Yes, Baker Ranch. BKR. I've seen the water trucks going in and out. It's excessive, I tell you. This isn't just about my hydrangeas anymore. It's about the entire community's water supply." Billy's stomach dropped. He recognized the unmistakable tone of a 911 call. He strained to hear the operator's response, but Mrs. Crabtree had turned her back, shielding the phone with her hand. Her voice rose again, sharper this time. "I demand you send someone out here immediately. This is an emergency. They're stealing our water." Billy's heart pounded. He knew his dad had all the proper permits for the well. He'd seen them, tucked away in the ranch office. But Mrs. Crabtree's accusations were like a wildfire, spreading quickly and dangerously. He pictured sirens blaring, sheriff's cars descending on the ranch, his dad's face creased with worry. He had to do something, anything, to stop this before it spiraled out of control. The police arrived. The crunch of gravel announced their arrival. Billy, who had been sketching the windmill in his notebook, looked up. A black and white police cruiser, lights off but still imposing, had pulled up to the edge of the property, kicking up dust that swirled in the afternoon sun. Two officers emerged, their expressions a mixture of boredom and professional curiosity. Mrs. Crabtree, perched on the hood of her pristine SUV, practically vibrated with self-importance. As the officers approached, she launched into her performance. "Thank goodness you're here. That man," she stabbed a finger towards Billy's dad, "is stealing water. He's draining the entire aquifer. My hydrangeas are practically skeletal." Officer Miller, a young woman with tired eyes, glanced at Billy's dad, who stood calmly by the well. He was wiping grease from his hands with a rag. The other officer, a stocky man named Johnson, ambled over to Mrs. Crabtree, notepad in hand. "Ma'am, can you please explain the situation?" "Explain." Mrs. Crabtree's voice rose an octave. "He's got some sort of illegal pump down there, siphoning off all the water. It's a disgrace, I tell you, a disgrace." She punctuated her accusations with dramatic flails towards the well, nearly losing her balance on the hood. Billy watched, his stomach twisting. He hated seeing his dad falsely accused. His dad, finally catching Officer Miller's eye, held up a hand in a gesture of peace. "Officer, if you'll allow me, I can explain everything. We've got a legal well permit, all up to code. I'd be happy to show it to you." He reached into his back pocket and pulled out a folded document, the paper crinkling softly in the breeze. Officer Johnson, after enduring another barrage of complaints from Mrs. Crabtree about water pressure and wilting flora, finally detached himself and joined Officer Miller. Billy's dad presented the well permit. The officers examined it, their expressions unreadable. The only sound was the gentle creak of the windmill and Mrs. Crabtree's increasingly agitated muttering. "Mom to the rescue." The rumble of an engine, different from the usual neighborhood traffic, drew Billy's attention. A dark blue SUV pulled into the driveway, emblazoned with the official seal of the State Water Resources Agency. Billy's eyes widened. He recognized that vehicle. It was his mom's official car. Hope surged through him. If anyone could untangle this mess, it was her. The car door swung open, and out stepped his mom, Sarah Baker, in her crisp state water inspector uniform. The sight of her official badge glinting in the afternoon sun was a welcome change to the accusatory glares of Mrs. Crabtree. "Billy, what's going on here?" she asked, her voice calm but firm, her gaze sweeping over the scene. Mrs. Crabtree, arms crossed and lips pursed, the growing puddle, and Billy, looking both relieved and slightly ashamed. Before Billy could stammer out an explanation, Mrs. Crabtree seized the opportunity. "Finally, someone with authority. This boy has been wasting precious water, flooding my petunias. I demand he be fined, or better yet, have his water shut off." Sarah Baker raised an eyebrow, a hint of steel entering her voice. "Is that so, Mrs. Crabtree?" "Prudence Crabtree. And I assure you, I have never seen such blatant disregard for water conservation in all my years." She puffed out her chest, clearly relishing the opportunity to finally be heard. Billy swallowed hard, his earlier hope waning. He knew his mom always took her job seriously. What if Mrs. Crabtree's exaggerations convinced her? His mom turned her attention to the overflowing trough, then knelt to examine the ground. Her fingers probed the soil, then she sniffed the air. She stood, her expression unreadable. "Mrs. Crabtree," she said, her voice dangerously low. "Perhaps you should allow my son to explain the situation before making accusations. As I am a state water inspector, I am uniquely positioned to determine if any actual violations have occurred. And I assure you, I will not tolerate false reports." Truth revealed. "But Mrs. Crabtree said." Billy began, confusion clouding his face. His mom knelt, her hand resting on his shoulder. "Mrs. Crabtree isn't always right, Billy. I inspected your well last week. Remember when I was gone all day? That's where I was. I'm a state water inspector, honey. That's why we moved here. The district needed someone local." A collective gasp filled the air. Mrs. Crabtree's face, already flushed from her tirade, deepened to a shade of beet red. She sputtered, her carefully coiffed hair seemingly deflating with each syllable. "But the algae. The report. The algae is a harmless bloom, common this time of year," Billy's mom explained, her voice calm but firm. "And the preliminary report is already filed, Mrs. Crabtree. You can access it online. There's absolutely nothing wrong with Billy's well water. It's cleaner than what comes out of your tap, I assure you." The two police officers, who had been observing the scene with growing skepticism, exchanged glances. One of them stepped forward. "Ma'am," he addressed Mrs. Crabtree, his tone polite but firm, "we understand your concern, but calling 911 for a non-emergency is a misuse of emergency services. Please refrain from doing so in the future." Mrs. Crabtree's shoulders slumped. The fire had gone out of her eyes, replaced by a flicker of mortification. She mumbled something about needing to check her email and retreated into her meticulously manicured yard, the gate clicking shut behind her with a final, defeated sound. Billy stared after her, his brow furrowed. He didn't understand why Mrs. Crabtree had lied. It made his stomach feel a little twisted. Ice cream and lessons learned. Mrs. Crabtree, her face a mottled mask of fury and embarrassment, scurried back toward her house, her floral dress billowing like a deflating parachute. The slam of her front door echoed through the suddenly peaceful cul-de-sac. A collective sigh of relief swept through the Baker family. Dad clapped Billy on the back. "You handled that like a pro, son. Stood your ground." Mom squeezed Billy's shoulder. "I'm so proud of you, Billy. It's not always easy to do what's right, especially when someone is being difficult." She glanced pointedly at Mrs. Crabtree's house. "But you did it. And that deserves extra ice cream for everyone." "Yes." Billy pumped his fist. The tension that had been coiled tight in his stomach began to unwind. As they walked towards town, the sun felt warmer, the birds sang a little louder, and even the scent of freshly cut grass seemed sweeter. They arrived at the ice cream parlor, a cheerful, brightly painted building with a line snaking out the door. The air was thick with the aroma of waffle cones and sugary delights. Later, sitting on a park bench, a double scoop of cookies and cream melting down his hand, Billy thought about the day. He had learned a valuable lesson. It wasn't just about knowing the rules. It was about honesty, integrity, and standing up for what was right, even when it was scary. Mrs. Crabtree's bluster hadn't changed the truth. His dad's job, the water, none of it could be twisted by someone's bad attitude. He licked the melting ice cream. He hoped Mrs. Crabtree learned something too, although he wasn't optimistic. He decided then and there that he wanted to be the kind of person who always did the right thing, no matter what. And maybe, just maybe, he'd even try to be a little nicer to Mrs. Crabtree. After all, someone had to set a good example. He took another bite of his ice cream, the sweetness a comforting reward for a day of unexpected challenges and important lessons learned.